Elasticity of demand. Kinds of elasticities of demand. A. Price elasticity. B. Income elasticity. C. Cross elasticity. And D. Substitution elasticity. A. Price elasticity. It is the price elasticity, which is commonly referred to as elasticity of demand. The law of demand indicates the direction of demand. However, it does not tell us the amount of quantity demand in response to a change in price. Price elasticity of demand, particularly, tells us the responsiveness of demand in reaction to the change in price of a commodity. It tells us the amount or the extent by which the demand will change in response to a change in the price. Degrees of price elasticity of demand. 1. Perfectly elastic demand, E equals to infinity. 2. Perfectly inelastic demand, E equals to 0. 3. Unitary elasticity of demand, E equals to unity. 4. Relatively inelastic demand, E less than unity. And 5. Relatively elastic demand, E greater than unity. Measurement of price elasticity. 1. Total outlay method. 2. Proportional method. And 3. Geometrical method. 1. Total outlay method. This method analyzes the relationship between the price of commodity and total revenue earned by the seller. Under this method, the elasticity of demand can be expressed in three ways, that is, unitary elasticity, greater than unity elasticity, and less than unity elasticity. A unitary elasticity. Under the total outlay method, the unitary elasticity of demand is represented by the situation when, even though the price has changed, the total amount spent or total revenue, from seller's point of view, remains the same. This situation is represented by a rectangular hyperbola, where the elasticity is unity throughout the demand curve at different price stages. E equals to unity, P up, O unchanged. P down, O unchanged. B. Greater than unity elasticity. Under the total outlay method, greater than unity elasticity of demand refers to the situation when, with the fall in price, the total amount spent by the consumer increases, and with the rise in price, the total amount spent by the consumer decreases. E greater than unity, P up, O down. P down, O up. C. Less than unity elasticity. Under the total outlay method, less than unity elasticity of demand refers to the situation when the total amount spent or total revenue increases with the rise in price and the decreases with the fall in price. E less than unity, P up, O up. P down, O down. 2. Proportional method. Under this method, elasticity of demand is measured in terms of a ratio of the percentage change in the quantity demanded to the percentage change in price. It can be mathematically expressed as follows: change in quantity demanded over quantity demanded divided by change in price over price. Delta Q over Q divided by delta P over P. Or delta Q over delta P divided by P over Q. Under this method, the elasticity of demand is always negative, although by convention, it is taken to be positive. It is negative because the fall in price is followed by a rise in demand. Again, the elasticity is stated in three forms, that is, greater than unity elasticity, unitary elasticity, and less than unity elasticity of demand. 3. Geometrical method. Geometrical method of measuring elasticity of demand can measure elasticity of demand at any point on the demand curve. Elasticity is stated in terms of fraction and in three forms, that is, greater than unity, unitary and less than unity elasticity of demand. The middle of the curve represent unitary elasticity, below to which, elasticity is less than unity, and above to which, elasticity is greater than unity. E greater than unity, D dash, P3, over dP3. E equals unity, D dash, P2, over dP2. E less than unity, D dash, P1, over dP1. E greater than unity, quart over pint. E less than unity, Q1, T dash, over P1, T dash. Point and arc elasticity. The point elasticity refers to elasticity of demand at any point on a demand curve. Point elasticity considers small changes in demand and price. The elasticity of demand on a particular point of demand curve can be mathematically calculated as below. Delta Q over delta P, multiplied by P over Q. According to Baumol, arc elasticity of demand is a measure of the average responsiveness to price changes. This could be measured through finite stretch of a demand curve. Therefore, any 2 points on a demand curve forms an arc, and between these 2 points, the arc provides measurement of elasticity of demand over a certain range of price and quantities. This can be simply plotted into the following mathematical formula: difference in quantities over sum of quantities, multiplied by sum of prices over difference in prices. Q1 minus Q2, over Q1 plus Q2, multiplied by P1 plus P2, over P1 minus P2. B. Income elasticity of demand. It is generally observed that there is an inverse relationship between the quantity demanded and price of a commodity. Therefore, the demand curve slopes downward from left to right. Whereas, this is not in the case of the relationship of income and quantity demanded. The higher the income of the consumer, the more units of commodity will be bought by him. Thus, the demand curve in the income elasticity slopes from right to left. Income elasticity of demand refers to the degree of responsiveness of quantity demanded to a change in the income of the consumer. It can be mathematically expressed as follows: change in quantity demanded over quantity demanded, multiplied by consumer's income over change in consumer's income. Delta Q over Q, multiplied by Y over delta Y. Measurement of income elasticity. The income elasticity can be measured through the above mathematical formula. The resulting figure can be classified into the following: 1. Greater than unity. The elastic demand of a commodity is expressed in the figure greater than 1. E greater than unity. 2. Unitary elasticity. The unitary elasticity of demand means that the change in consumer's income is followed by proportionate change in quantity demanded. E equals to unity. 3. Less than unity. The less than unity means inelastic demand of a commodity and expressed in the figure less than 1. It means that the degree of change in quantity demanded is less than to the change in consumer's income. E less than unity. C. Cross-elasticity of demand. When the quantity demanded of a commodity changes in response to the change in price of another commodity, it refers to cross-demand elasticity. These two commodities may either be substitutes of each other, or one may be a complementary good for another. Therefore, the cross-elasticity of demand is measured in accordance with these two types of interrelated goods, that is, the substitutes and complementary goods. Cross-elasticity of demand is expressed as the percentage change in quantity demanded of good X to the percentage change in the price of a related good Y. Mathematically, it can be measured as below: change in quantity demanded of X over quantity demanded of X, multiplied by price of Y over change in price of Y. Delta QX over QX, multiplied by P over delta P. The cross-elasticity of demand can be further bifurcated into 1. Cross-elasticity of substitute goods, and 2. Cross-elasticity of complementary goods. 1. Cross-elasticity of substitute goods. The examples of substitute goods are tea and coffee, motor car and motorcycle, cigarette and pipe, pen and pencil, telephone and mobile phone, business and service or investments in marketable securities, leasehold property and freehold property, etc. Suppose the prices of motor cars significantly rise, there will be a shift of demand from motor car to a cheaper substitute, that is, motorcycle. It should be remembered that the elasticity of demand of substitutes will always positive. The cross-elasticity of substitute goods can be in three forms. A greater than unity. Greater than unity elasticity means that the change in price of a good, say, motorcycle, leads to more proportionate change in the quantity demanded of the substitute, say, motorcycle. E greater than unity. B. Unitary elasticity of demand refers to the proportionate change in price of a good followed by equal proportionate change in quantity demanded of the substitute. E equals to unity. C. Less than unity elasticity of demand refers to less proportionate change in quantity demanded of the substitute good led by the change in price of a good. E less than unity. 2. Cross-elasticity of complementary goods. The examples of complementary goods are pen and ink, motor vehicle and petrol or gas, house and paint, fertilizer and seeds, aeroplane and internal equipment, computer and internet products, mobile phones and charging adapter, etc. Complementary goods are jointly demanded by a consumer. Therefore, with a rise in the price of a commodity will lead to a fall in demand for its complementary goods. In this case the elasticity of demand is negative. D. Substitution elasticity of demand. The substitution elasticity of demand refers to the fact that to what extent one commodity can be substituted for another without making any change in the total satisfaction of the consumer. The underlying concept is the marginal rate of substitution as studied in indifference curve. From the definition of substitution elasticity, it can be concluded that the consumer is to remain on the same indifference curve at various combinations of substitution commodities. It is the substitution effect that measures the substitution elasticity of demand, just as in the price elasticity of demand, measured by price effect. Following are the forms of substitution elasticity of demand. 1. Elasticity of substitution is infinite. 2. Elasticity is equal to 0. 3. I greater than unity. 4. Lower than unity. And 5. Unitary elasticity. 1. Elasticity of substitution is infinite. Means that the substitution of one good for another is extremely difficult, that even a small change could bring huge instead infinite variations in the marginal rate of substitution MRS. E equals infinity. 2. Elasticity of substitution is 0, refers to the perfectly inelastic demand substitution. It means that any variation in the proportions of commodities will not bring much change or no change. This situation leads the elasticity of substitution is 0. E equals 0. 3. Elasticity of substitution equals to or not equals to unity. There are two extremes discussed above, that is, infinite and zero elasticities. Between these two extremes, there are a number of variations. The elasticity of substitution can be measured with the help of following formula: delta Qx over Qy divided by Qx over Qy multiplied by delta y over delta x divided by delta y over delta x, where Qx over Qy is original proportion between quantities of x and y. Delta Qx over Qy is change in the proportion of x and y. Delta y over delta x is initial MRS of x and y. Delta y over delta x is change in MRS of x and y. Relationship between price elasticity and substitution elasticity and income elasticity. 1. The price effect consists of two components, viz. the income effect and substitution effect. 2. Therefore, the price elasticity depends on income elasticity and substitution elasticity. 3. The relationship between price elasticity and income and substitution elasticities is expressed in the following formula: EP equals K, XEI plus bracket 1 minus KX bracket ES, where EP equals price elasticity, EI equals income elasticity. ES equals substitution elasticity. Kx equals proportion of consumers' income spent on X. 4. Thus, the price elasticity of demand depends on 1. Income elasticity, EI. 2. Substitution elasticity, ES. 3. Proportion of income spent on the goods other than X.